For the last few years, one of the most prominent ad campaigns, if you continue to have cable or if you're on social media, you've probably noticed it as well. But one of the most prominent ad campaigns that has risen to the very top and has garnered a lot of attention, a lot of discussion, and to a certain extent, in February with the Super Bowl, gathered a little bit of a scuttlebug, if you will. You probably know this ad campaign as the He Gets Us ad campaign. It is supported by prominent businesses throughout this country. Hobby Lobby is one of those, which is should be no surprise to many of us, but it's considered to be the largest Christian-based ad campaign, at least in this country's history. Now, if you find something a little bit different, please, by all means, let me know. But they are able to reach a mass audience through their commercials, through the ad campaign. And the purpose is twofold. It's either to reach people for Jesus, or at least at a bare minimum, to get others to be thinking about Jesus. But the unique angle that the ad campaign takes is not one of divinity, but one of the humanity of Jesus. For the last several months, we have been looking at a question of who is Jesus? Who is He? And we've been putting that question under the umbrella of our theme for this year that we've entitled Becoming. The path from here to Him, which is based off of Romans chapter 8 and verse 29. That God's plan and God's will and God's purpose for everybody who claims to follow Jesus, not just with their words, but with their actions, that we are to become like Him in every way. That there is less and less and less of us as the days and the years go by. And that there is more and more of Him. That we would learn to have a mind that thinks like Jesus, a mouth that would speak like Jesus, hands that would participate in good works like Jesus, feet that would walk a path that Jesus walked. When we encountered people, to see them as God would see them, as Jesus would see them, and treat them accordingly. Whether it is the most basic form of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, to the highest form that you love one another as I have loved you. That every aspect of our entire life is infused and influenced by the very presence and image and example of Jesus. So we ask the question then, if that is God's will, well then who is He? In the last several months, we've been going from the perspective of answering that question that He is God. He is God. But what I'd like for us to do in the next couple of weeks is to see the other side of that. And that is that Jesus is human. Now, when we discuss the humanity of Jesus, we use a word incarnation to wrap all of that up. And from a secular point of view, we kind of confine it to a month in a year and sometimes to a day within a year. And you know that time is Christmas time. But the Bible, specifically the New Testament, will go out of its way to emphasize the incarnation and the fact that Jesus became human. I don't know how many of you are familiar with a lady by the name of Dorothy Sayers, but when she was surveying the religious world, whether it's Christianity or other religions, she said this, that Jesus Christ is the only God who has a date in history. And how right she is. While we may not know when He was born, we know that He was born. We know that He was born of a virgin. We know that He grew up. We know that He got lost at 12 years old. We know that He had all sorts of brothers, sisters. He had 2 parents, all sorts of things. The New Testament will not let us forget that Jesus is human. In our section this morning, we're going to be looking at the book of Hebrews in chapter 2, verses 14 through 18. And we're going to be looking at this section from the NIV that captures the idea, and the language reflects the idea of the humanity of Jesus. Because as a reminder, that baby that was born that many celebrate did grow up. He did become an adult. He did follow God, and he did provide us an example. The Hebrew writer will say this in Hebrews chapter 2 in the first half of verse 14, that since children, and if you're taking notes, that idea of children is humanity here, in kind of as a generalized word, the catch-all word. Since the children have flesh and blood, he, that is Jesus, he too shared in their humanity. That's our most basic form of fellowship. But this is not that he shared it, but he had that in common with humanity. That when he was born, he had it in common with flesh, with blood, with skin, with hair, with nails. God wrapped up in human flesh and blood. The Hebrew writer will go on further to say that not only is that from a physical standpoint, but that is everything that makes a human human. Said that for this reason he had to be made like them. He had to be made like human beings, fully human in every way. Fully human in every way. I'm sure you're like me, that somewhere along the path of your Christian walk, you have wondered, does Jesus truly understand what it means to be human? Does he truly know what it means? Does he know what it's like to get angry? Does he know what it's like to have your loyalty and your disposition to be committed to God, to actually have that tested? Does he know what it's like to not just be tired, but to be exhausted? Does he know what it's like to be agitated with other people? Does he know what it's like to be aggravated, frustrated? Does he know what it's like to be hangry when your stomach is grumbling because you haven't eaten when it seems like forever? Does he know what it's like to have to live with another individual who has free will? Does he know what it's like to see another individual make great choices and their life reflects that? Does he know what that's like to see people make bad choices, people you love, and go down a path that you can't follow them on? Does he know what it's like to have a little bit of tension at the dinner table because not everybody's getting along right now? Does he know what it's like to follow God when other family members are not following God? Fully human in every way. What I'd like to do with this series, hopefully, Lord willing, over the next couple weeks, is fold that question, that overarching question of who is Jesus, to a secondary question. How does Jesus use his humanity? The He Gets Us campaign, and I would venture to say for these two reasons, and this is just off my top of my head, that they can't go any further than what they are able to promote. One, because it just costs a lot of money to be able to put a commercial together. But two, it's most likely to just whet the appetite enough with the hope that you would actually be curious enough to go find out. That you'd be curious enough to maybe go ask a question or whatever the case may be. And this is where I want us to go, to kind of fill in the blank, because the majority of us here knows that he is human, and we believe that with all of our heart. Question is how does he use that humanity? How does he use the flesh and blood and the experiences and the incredible highs and the incredible lows? How does he use everything in between if he became human? So you're not going to become human just for the sake of becoming human. Well, a big part of this, according to the Hebrew writer, is the role that Jesus was going to have after he ascended back to the Father in heaven. One of the things that we forget sometimes is that, yes, we know that Jesus is alive, but do you know that Jesus is active? You know that Jesus is not sitting around and just waiting for the Father to tell him it's time to come back? That Jesus is active, he's not passive, that he is working on our behalf individually and as families and as a congregation, that Jesus is on your side and that he's on my side, that he is for us. The Hebrew writer will say that in order, that one of the reasons why Jesus became human and lived a human life, fully human in every way, with every experience that you could possibly imagine, that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Now this phrase, this high priest phrase that you see here, just for a moment, I'd like to describe it, and I'm going to fall short just because of the time, but I hope maybe that you kind of go look at it on your own and get a little bit more of a greater appreciation than what I'm able to give this morning. But just think of this for a moment. Have you ever just gone through something? And no matter if you're talking to yourself, you're talking to someone else, you just think, if not just verbally say, I truly wish that someone would understand what it's like to have this life that I am having to live. I wish somebody could walk in my shoes. I wish that someone could experience what I'm experiencing. And I wish that somebody could explain it to others for me. The high priest within Judaism that we find in our Hebrew Bibles was a man that was selected to represent the entire nation of Israel. And once a year, he would go as a representative of the entire nation into the presence of God. There he would offer sacrifices for his sin, for the sins of the nation, and he would do so in the privacy of what we call the most holy place. And it would just be he and God. And everybody else would stand outside. But no one ever believed that they were excluded. They actually believed that this is one of the best things that God had given us. Because what we can't do for ourselves in the presence of God, this man will do for us. And that's Jesus. That what we can't do for ourselves, no matter how many wishes we may make, no matter how many prayers we may lift up, we can't do it for ourselves, but Jesus is there right now, ready and willing to be your advocate with God the Father. And the great news is that it doesn't have to be an appointment based. We had to go the other day to renew our driver's license in Goldsboro. If you want to hear an earful, I'll give you a lot more why we have to end up doing that. But we made the appointment 6 months ago. 6 months ago. Some of you already noticed. Shaking your heads in agreement because you probably had the same experience. So I'm going to resist the soapbox and just simply say how much our lives are guided by appointments. When's the last day you didn't have an appointment? Our Savior doesn't have to schedule an appointment with God the Father to talk to Him about us. He doesn't have to schedule it 6 months out, 3 months out. He doesn't have to compare calendars. He doesn't have to share it via Google, with a Google Drive. He doesn't have to do any of that. He just simply says, this son of yours, this brother of mine, this daughter of yours, this sister of mine, they're struggling. And they need us. They don't exactly know what it is, but I'm here to talk on their behalf. You have that every single day. You don't have to call and ask, is this a bad time? You don't have to call or you don't have to pray and wonder whether you're going to take your number, because even after we created our appointment for a certain time, we still had to take a number and we still had to watch for our number on the screen. That doesn't exist in the halls of heaven. You're not looking at a monitor and you're not waiting for the voice over the speaker to say, now serving number 157. Jesus is your high priest, and not only is He your high priest who represents you perfectly in front of God, but He does so with mercy and He does so with faithfulness. He is reliable, He is dependable, He is compassionate, and He is gracious, and He is good, and He is kind, and He is eager to do that for you. This is why He becomes human. Because not only now does He know this because He is all-knowing from a head standpoint, head knowledge, He's now experienced it. He is the one individual who could truly say, I've walked where you've had to walk, and I've had to experience what you've had to experience. You lost a loved one. I know what that's like. You have trouble with your family? I know what that's like. You had someone that you invested in and you love them, be it a child, be it a best friend, and now they're just completely gone. I know what that's like. I know what it's like for someone to look you in the eye and say, I'm committed and I am here and I will see it through only for the circumstance to change. And they're out. I know what it's like to constantly be needed from someone else. I know what it's like to be the only one to other people that you appear to be the only one who has all the answers. And you're the only one who can solve the issue. I know what it's like to be under stress. I know what it's like to be under deadlines. I know what it's like to be exhausted. I even know what it's like to follow God and be tempted to quit. I know exactly what that's like. I know what it's like that I can be so stressed that I will sweat drops of blood. I know exactly what all of that is like. And I am here for you. That's why he says that surely it's not angels that he helps, but Abraham's descendants. He goes on further in verse 18, because he himself suffered. He himself suffered when he was tempted. He is able to help those who are being tempted. You see the theme, that what he is eager to do is he's eager to help. You see it twice within the text that here he is. He's not angels. I didn't come to help a Gabriel. I didn't come to help a Michael. I didn't come to help any of those. I've come to help you. And the idea of help isn't to just give sound counsel or some good advice. The help is that if someone were walking and I'm talking to all of you and I keep walking and all of a sudden I'm getting a little close, I'll be your guardrail. I'm here to help you so that when you're about to stumble, when you're about to fall, when you're about to quit, when your perseverance is low or near empty, when you have all sorts of questions and no answers, you have more instability than you have stability, and the list goes on and on and on. I am here to help is what he says. I'm here to help. I'm here not just to give you the counsel and the words that you need when you need them. I am here to reach out my hand, and I am here to give you the aid that's needed. And you know what that is? It's not just before the temptation or the test, but it's also after. Because he knows. He knows when we're tempted, and he knows that when we're tested. And those two words are used interchangeably here in the text. It's why some of you have temptation, or the word tempted like I do on the NIV, and some of you have a word tested. They mean the same. He knows exactly. It's not just that he knows what you're going through, but he knows what you need. And here's more important, and it's the one thing that none of us can do. You ever been in a situation with someone and you know exactly what they need, but you are powerless to give them what they need? That's not Jesus. I know what you need, and I can give you what you need. I know the help that is needed for you as a human being who is committed to following God, and I can provide you the help. I am on your side. I'm here to give you aid. And by the way, when you fail the test, I'm here to lend my hand and to pick you back up and offer forgiveness and say, let's keep moving forward. When you got more doubts than it appears to be more faith, I'm here to walk with you, just like I did with the Thomas. When you're Peter and you're so committed until you're around the fire, I'm here to meet you and take a walk with you on the beach. And that same Peter delivered a great sermon on the day of Pentecost. And you know what else? Just a few years later, his actions created a great division within the Galatian churches. You know what happened after that? He's restored and he writes 2 letters aged in life. Jesus knows the ebbs and the flows of a human being who has all the intention and all the heart and all the mentality. I am in this. And He knows why we fail and why we fall short. Not because He did it. He's perfect in everything. But He knows. He knows exactly all that you would encounter. And I'm there to help you. If your son or daughter needed help, you would spare no expense to find them a tutor for their academics. If your son or daughter needed help, you would spare no expense to find them a medical specialist. If you needed help, you wouldn't do the same. We all need help spiritually. We know where we want to be. And as someone said earlier to me this week, I know where I ought to be, but I'm not there. Jesus knows that. None of us are where we want to be, and none of us are where we ought to be, and He knows that. He is able to help those who are being tempted. He helps you with His presence because He never leaves you and He doesn't forsake you. He doesn't abandon you. He helps you by stirring up a reminder in your heart and in your mind the truth and the promises and the power of His Word. He helps you by bearing witness with your spirit through His Holy Spirit and carries your prayers up to God. He helps you that when we're like Peter and we're drowning in the water because our eyes got distracted and we started looking somewhere else, He doesn't say, come on back up and then I'll help you. He reaches down into the water and He picks us up. This is who our Savior is, and this is what He does for us. He is the high priest who meets us with mercy and with faithfulness. This is what He's doing for you. This is what He wants to do for you. This is why He became a human. The last thing is this. There is a common fear that we share. The Hebrew writer will say that He becomes human. And He does so that He can taste death and He can make atonement for sin. But He also does something else with His death. The Hebrew writer says that by His death, Jesus might break, probably the better translation or the better rendering of the original word, He renders useless the power of him who holds the power of death. That is the devil. And free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. A lot of us, we struggle with this. For the Christian, it is natural to fear death, but it is unnecessary to fear it. Because Jesus died and Jesus came back to life. You and I are here because we remember on the first day of the week, God did not leave Jesus in the grave. It's not just celebrated once a year. We're reminded of it every single day. And I like that phrase, render useless, because in my pocket, I've got a card that is now rendered useless. It's called a driver's license. And it's expired, but I got a paper one. So I'm not driving with an expired license. There is no expiration date for the work of Jesus. But you need to know, and I need to know, there is an expiration date for the devil and for death. If you're a Christian, you don't have to fear death, because your hope is not in 6 feet underground. And your hope is not buried when dirt went over that. Your hope is the fact that a man died and came out of the tomb. He became human in the most upside down way, to die, to defeat death itself. Because the only way to defeat death was to come out of the tomb, to never die again, and that's exactly what He did. So a couple of weeks ago, when we were celebrating Easter and acknowledging the resurrection of Jesus, and we were looking at the death of Lazarus, whom Jesus wept. And he knows what he's going to do, and he weeps. He just cries because he's lost one of his closest and dearest friends. And he knows what he's going to do. That in the middle of all that grief, he reminds himself and he reminds Mary and Martha and he reminds us that whoever puts their faith in me, even if they die, they remain alive. That's powerful. That's a help. And we can be free from the lifelong slavery that the devil puts over us when it comes to that. My question to you as we close out is, when will you start turning to Him? When will you start relying on Him? When will you start running towards Him, who is eager to help you? I think today's a great day to do that. Today's a great day to stop looking to the things of this life and the powers that claim to be, and start looking to the one who has all power and all authority. Not just simply because He's God, but because He is fully human in every way. If you're not a Christian, we want to encourage you to respond to Jesus. He's the only one that makes atonement for sin, as the verse that we looked at, and that is that He's the only one who paid the full price as the full substitute for us. But His blood is sufficient to wash us free from anything and everything that we may have done. Again, and perhaps if you were here with us on Wednesday night looking at the life of the prodigal son, perhaps the better title for the story is The Loving Father. You just need to know that this Jesus is eager to help you in any way that He possibly can today, because He is full of mercy and He's full of faithfulness. I hope you would know that. If you have any need, why don't you come as we stand and as we sing?